Hi, and welcome to the webinar today, how to optimize your digital presence to attract top marketing talent, accounting talent, sorry. Meryl Johnson from Being Ninjas and Team Up is with me here today. Hey, Meryl, how you doing?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, good. Thanks for making the time, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Let us know in the chat where you're dialing in from. It'd be great to know, and we can test that out. So you can use the chat to ask us questions as we go. Want this to be a really interactive session. I'm in the South Island of New Zealand, a little place called Wanaka. Where are you, Meryl?
I'm on the Gold Coast, and I normally would say the sunny Gold Coast, but it looks like there's a storm brewing today.
All right, yeah, okay. Quite nice and sunny here today, pretty windy. Yeah, cool. Let us know in the chat. Hi, Vinci from the Philippines. How you doing? Nice and early for you.
Eventually, I was actually in the Philippines just a couple of weeks ago. It was my first visit, and we took the Bee Ninjas team to Boracay, and then also I'm part of another business called Team Up, and we also had a team retreat with that team as well. It was my first time, and it was amazing. I loved it.
Nice. So from the Philippines as well. How you doing? Hey, Lisa in Melbourne. How are you? All right, cool. Well, yeah, keep letting us know, and we're going to get into the session today. So, Meryl, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm the founder of Bee Ninjas, which we call ourselves e-commerce growth accountants. So we work with clients that sell on Shopify, Amazon typically, and where we have clients in Australia, the US, and UK. There's a team of around 30 staff. And I said founder, but I'm not in the day-to-day of that business anymore. I'm there about one to 2 days a week, depending on what's on, mainly running marketing and doing mentoring in that business. And more recently, this year, I've also joined Team Up, and they help accounting and bookkeeping firms recruit Filipino accountants. And so I'm wearing a couple of different hats today.
Nice. Oh, awesome. Hi, Holly in Southern Tasmania, for anyone who doesn't know. John's in Brisbane, overcast as well. It's not far from you, Meryl. How you doing? Yeah, so Matt Wilkinson, I founded BizInc over a decade ago now. We work with accountants and bookkeepers all over the world, helping them with their websites and marketing. So definitely a topic today that is close to my heart. So keen to get into it. And what we're going to be talking about today is the due diligence that potential employees do on you. We'll have a look at some outstanding careers pages and then have a look at some company and personal social media tips through that lens of looking to attract top talent. And we'll have a Q&A at the end, but honestly, feel free to ask questions as we go. We're going to do this as a very conversational session. It's not like we've done no preparation, but like we definitely want to keep this very conversational. So happy to answer questions as we go. Hey, Sandy in Melbourne, thanks for joining us today. So yeah, what we thought we'd do first is set the scene really and talk about like why it's important to optimize your digital presence. So we're going to talk about like what happens before someone even gets to that due diligence stage. And I've certainly never hired in an accounting firm. You've done that a lot, Meryl. So maybe you tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I wanted to set the scene looking at, well, what happens before someone's actually thinking about taking a role with you. And at that stage, they're probably going to do some things like check out your careers page and do some research. But what happens before that? And I think that attracting accountants and bookkeepers to your firm or other staff members is a bit like marketing to attract clients. But instead of trying to attract clients, you're attracting team members. And so I like to think about branding Bee Ninjas in that respect. And one of the things I think about is what makes us different? Why would someone want to come and work my firm? And how can we lean into that and talk about that on social media and on our careers page, and also have that align with actually the reality of working with us? And I thought I'd start by sharing 3 stories of 3 different firms. At Xerocon earlier this year in Australia, I was on a panel talking about marketing and employer branding. And there were 3 of us with very different firms, which all had something different that we were using to attract candidates. So at Bean Ninjas, we lean into flexibility. So we've been remote, 100% remote for 8 years from when we started. And so that's something that we talk about on our careers page very early on. We've got flexible work. You can choose your own hours. You can work from anywhere. And so in the early days of Bean Ninjas, we couldn't pay market salaries. We were a bootstrap business with not a big budget in those first few years. We couldn't win on salary, but we were still able to attract some top accountants, even some from big 4 accounting firms, to work at a bookkeeping business, which is what it was back then. And that was by leaning into flexibility. The 2 other firms I'll talk about, one was a firm based in Auckland. They had a big in-office presence. So what they were advocating and what they were promoting was, we've got a great social scene, come along. We don't just have Friday night drinks. We've got a great in-office culture. You'll build good relationships and you'll get mentoring. So if you're in your 20s, you want to fast track your career, then come and work in the office. We have managers and senior staff who are going to be in the office with you. You're going to build great bonds and relationships with them, and you're going to progress your career. And then the 3rd firm was a rural firm in New Zealand, and they hired local staff. And so they had some challenges just in the number of accountants that were in the region. But their strategy was by getting involved in community groups. So they concentrated on being a great place to work, because in a small community like that, everybody talks. So if an employee has a bad experience, then everyone in the community is going to be aware of that. So the number one thing was be a great place to work. And then they sponsored a whole lot of different community organizations, sports teams and other groups, and had a strong community presence in the area. So I think there's 3 different strategies, but it's all about leaning into what makes you different as a firm. And I think it's important to understand that before you're going out to the market to attract people to work at your business.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those. I think it's always good to have real stories. And what I'm taking from that is there isn't a right answer to how you should do it. And I think he jokingly used the example of, like, it's a bit like Tinder, right? I'm too old to know if it's swipe left or right, but basically the way I see that is, like, you don't just swipe for everyone, right? Like, it's about making yourself, like, who are you the right person for? So I think that's really important. Is not trying to be a jack of all trades, right? It's like, this is what we offer, and there'll be some people out there that really like that and some people who don't, but that's good.
Yeah, and that, so the young accountant in their 20s, that's often not a good fit at Bean Ninjas. We seem to attract people with young families who really value flexibility, but we're not as great at training because we're not doing that in office work. So we have to hire more senior staff. And so that ties in with exactly what you're saying. Know who you're trying to target and what's important to them.
Yeah, cool. So, like, when you interview candidates, and I've had this happen to me, they've often done a lot of research, actually, particularly the ones you really, the better ones. They've been on your website, they've been all over your socials, and I've seen that done really well, actually, by candidates, and I've seen it where it's almost a bit creepy. They've gone a bit too far. But anyway, my point is they've done quite a bit of research generally. Did you find that as well?
I found that, and often they're the good candidates because they've decided that they want to work at your firm. And so I've had candidates say to me, can you tell me about launching the business in 7 days? And I think, well, that's great. They've obviously either listened to our podcast or read some of the articles about the backstory of Bean Ninjas to ask me a great question like that. And that shows that they care, but also they've had to go pretty deep. That's not on our careers page. They've had to go searching through other pages of our website for that. And in the early, so I haven't done as much hiring myself recently as in being in the interviews. I've got other team members doing that. But the first 5 years, I mean, I've interviewed hundreds of accountants in the early years of Bean Ninjas. And sometimes they would even find us through posts on social media. I remember back then, we were promoting flexible work, and I'd post a photo of me at our surf resort client working from my laptop saying, work from anywhere. And so they'd then go down the rabbit hole of our social media, my personal social media profile, but also the business. And I think that's an important thing to note as well. They're not necessarily just looking at the business pages, they probably are checking out the founders or who they're going to be working with too on places like LinkedIn.
I've had that where, you know, they're like, they ask you about something and, you know, you kind of remember you wrote it. Maybe that's my memory. And I'd be like, did that say that? Okay, yeah, we can talk about that. And actually one of those things, not quite in the same circumstances, I said something on a podcast, which I actually thought was quite a good comment, and I couldn't remember saying it, but was that whether you think you've got one or not, you've got a brand, right? And so like whether you spent money in it or not, you've got a brand. And you know, obviously a good brand, you've invested in it, you've thought about it, you've spent money on it, there's design, there's copywriting. But if you haven't done any of those things, you know, people look at that, your brand is kind of like, you know, budget, you know, old school, whatever, it's not good. And I think that to me is one of the biggest things in very general terms why, you know, like you said, it's like marketing. People are looking at you, what's the impression you're giving off?
Yeah, I like to think of brand as what people say about you when you're not there. And so they might be saying it's a great place to work, they might not, but if someone doesn't know anyone at your firm, all they have to go on is what you've put out there online. So if you've got old design, a website from 20 years ago, then that might give an indication of that's what tech adoption's like at the firm, and you're not modern there either and using old tools. And that assumption may not be correct, but that's all a potential employee might have to go on.
Yeah, that sounds good. Might launch a little poll at this point. I'm interested in if anyone's looking to hire right now, because you know, we keep getting told about the talent shortage, and it seems like that comes up in pretty much every conversation that I have all around the world with accountants and bookkeepers. So it'd be interesting to know if people you are hiring, or you're thinking about it, or you're not. Let's see what that split is like. So I'll just let that run for a few seconds. Right, Paul, I will close that off and share the results. So yeah, like 80% of people either are hiring or looking to be soon. So hopefully this stuff is already useful to you. So let's maybe move beyond that kind of general what happens when people are looking, and let's look at the specifics of how you can do that on your website. So it's what's like outstanding careers pages, and maybe we'll broaden this out to, you know, to just like website stuff in general. I guess like to open it up, Meryl, a question I have is like, do you think firms should have a careers page even if they're not hiring? So, you know, there's a few people aren't hiring, but I've seen firms who, you know, the no open vacancies type thing, but they're still doing that job of selling the firm. Do you advocate for that?
Absolutely. And something we like to think about is being of how can we build a bench of pre-vetted people that want to work at our firm when there's an opening. So how can we stand out and make it so attractive that people will wait until there's an opportunity? So we have a mentality of always hiring. So having the careers page, but we will also interview people in preparation. No, I mean, we're growing, so we often, it might only be another couple of months until we're hiring the next role, but we'll keep that going. And you might not be hiring as often as that, but I think it is important to have that careers page just so that if people are checking out, considering working with you, then they can learn a little bit about you. And I remember when I first moved to Queensland, I'm from Melbourne, and moved here, and I had two dream jobs. I wanted to live and work in Coolangatta, right next to one of the greatest surf beaches. And so there was one firm that I looked at their careers page, and I applied, and I regularly tried to contact them and cold called. They wouldn't put me through to the appropriate person, but I knew I wanted to work there. And so absolutely, I think every firm should have a careers page and information about what it's like to work there.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, everything in business takes longer than you think, right? Like, it's like, if you want to hire someone for the next quarter, you're probably already too late, right? By the time you like get the ad or promote the ad, get the applications, do the interviews. So I think like what I've found as well, it's important not to, like, if someone awesome comes along, shoehorn them into your firm. I think that's, important. And I've seen not accountants, but businesses make that mistake. It's like, right person, wrong time. But often I feel like people, we will wait a few months if it's the right thing, that they're happy to wait a few months, so you can sort of, you can stagger that. Better to have the problem of like, too many people coming in at the top, or than nobody at all. So yeah, I agree on that. There's a question coming through on the chat there. Let's have a look. So I think, yeah, may I like, even for very small firms that can't create a spot for a good candidate, I mean, maybe one way to work that, like, if you're not hiring that much, possibly not. I guess a point I was going to make was that we host a lot of websites at BizInc all over the world. The most viewed page is the homepage. The second most viewed page is the team page. So people are interested in what the firm is like. So if we just park the kind of job seeking bit for a second, I actually think you get traffic on this page. So it doesn't have to be called careers, it could be called, yeah, I think you can call it other things, right? And it can just be part of your kind of about, is like, this is the culture of our firm. And some of the pages we're going to show you very much like that. I think that could be really important in your marketing, is to show the type of firm that you are. People like to see that. I think they're way more interested in looking at that than they are a services page or something like that.
I wanted to add to that, and I agree. So maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be called the careers page, but it's about us or team. But if I'm looking at a vendor, I always go to that page. I actually look at the careers page too, if they have it, because I feel like that gives me a sense of what's the team like, what are their values, and they might say that on the homepage, but you get real insight into what they're like as a business. I like to know some of their backstory, how big the team is, what level people are, how fast they've grown. I find that information really useful in trying to assess whether I want to have a long-term vendor relationship with someone as well.
Yeah, totally. I think that openness is really important. Like, I was looking at a potential vendor site this week, couldn't work out what country they're in, couldn't see who's behind the company. And I'm just like, this feels suspicious to me, like, why are they hiding that information? So I'm a big fan of doing all of that. And then, like, we're going to talk about what makes an outstanding careers page. I think maybe let's get some examples up. Should we start with Big Ninjas?
Yes, don't tear it to shreds. We haven't updated it for a few years.
Yeah, let's have a look at, so I think that, like, we can bring out some of these points as we're doing this, right? So do you want to talk us through this page, Mel?
Sure. So we're trying to sell a role at Big Ninjas to potential candidates. So the copy, the writing and the images here are different to our homepage. So that this video is about what it's like to work at Big Ninjas. It's not what it's like to be a client. So that video is interviews with our team, and it's all talking about working at the business. And then we're talking about who we are, and we're trying to repel people too. So we're trying to attract people with similar values who want what we want, but also it might turn people off too, which is fine, because we're not trying to hire everybody, just people that are going to be a good fit.
And just to pause on that, I think it's a vastly underestimated part of marketing. Is it's not just about attraction, it's about repulsion as well. Not in a rude way or a bad way. It's just, like, this is who we're for, and that by definition means you're not for some other people. And I think that's really important, to commit to that. I think too much marketing, particularly with accountants and bookkeepers, that I see, it's not bold enough. So I think it's good to stake out that position boldly, confidently, and yeah, you will have a stronger attraction to the right people if you do that.
And I'll say a weakness of ours. So this video is old, like probably maybe 4 years old. And so it's not reflective of our team now. So we've got 20 staff in the Philippines, and we've got no Filipino accountants in the video. So we actually have a new video that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. And there we're featuring interviews with some of our Filipino team members and images from our team retreat. So I'd say that's a weakness of this page at the moment, is it's not reflective of who we're trying to attract and what our team is about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about our values, which is something we're just repeating over and over as stories in the business, but again, important to convey what's important to us.
Mm-hmm. I think values as well, I see them on a lot of accounting websites. And I know people spend a lot of time on that kind of their why and all that stuff. In my opinion, it's very powerful for this, but I don't think potential clients care that much about that stuff a lot of the time. It sounds brutal, and people often hate me saying that stuff, but they don't. Like, they just care about what's in it for them. And then maybe it's nice afterwards. The example I was used, Patagonia clothing, great, surfing brand, mountaineering brand, which I like, they've got a great backstory, but I only buy the clothes because they're really good. It's got to be really good. You don't buy them because it's like, oh, I like the story. You buy them because they're like absolute top end mountaineering clothes or whatever it is that you're into. And they've got a good story as well. So yeah, I think value is really powerful for your team. Not always at the forefront when it comes to attracting clients. That's just my take in it.
So next we're trying to have some data. So we do an employee NPS quarterly. So it's getting a pulse, asking for feedback. And so we've considered that a pretty high score, showing that team members are happy. And so we're sharing that. And then talking about our job openings, highlighting some benefits.
And one of the things that I don't know how easy it is on your site, so you can talk to that, but making it super easy for people to apply, to me is really, really important. So Meryl and I were just chatting about this before the session. It's like my bank. Every time I want to do something, here's a PDF, you got to download this. And they actually do digital signing now, which is like mind blowing, but it's like, why can't I just do this in the app? So I feel like that makes me very unhappy with them, and if that process happens at the start, of an engagement, I just don't like that at all. And I think it's the same, that due diligence extends to the hiring process. Like, if that feels super slick, you're just casting a good impression right from the start, right?
Absolutely. And you want to make it easy for them. So we have an online form here. We also want to make it easy for ourselves. We ask for a Loom video. We find that's a great way to assess people's communication skills and get a sense of them without having to do all the back and forwards of scheduling. That's something we're noticing. So over at Team Up, that's a recruitment business. So they're placing lots of Filipino accountants. They're noticing there's a lot of competition for talent at the moment. So if your process is too onerous and too slow, then great candidates will have already had multiple offers and they will have already accepted one. If you're taking too long to make a decision or have 4 levels of interview plus a skills test plus this other step. So that's something to be mindful of. Where's the market? And is it swinging in the candidate's favor? Or is it swinging more in the firm's favor in terms of how onerous and slow you want to make that process?
It's like buying a house, isn't it? I sold a house last year, and I took a lower offer with less conditions because it just got it done. It got done in a week, and the other one we could have made a bit more money. Quite a bit more money, but it was like, man, this is like so many conditions, and so yeah, it's a buyer's market, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it was a seller's market, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, cool. I think you mentioned one of the other sites that we're going to look at has like a process thing that shows that. Should I show that one now?
Yeah, so Tax Valet, they've got a great careers page.
I'll just bring this one up.
So they've got videos up the top.
Yeah.
Other people, you could go and explore that in your own time, but it's got some testimonials, but videos with interviews with staff that work there. But down below, they've got a flow chart or a process flow that explains what to expect through the interview process. And I think that's really nice for candidates to know, especially if it's a little bit slower, but they really want to work somewhere. They know, oh, this is just standard. It's not that my application's not successful. This is just how the process works. And then they know what to expect.
That's great. Well, like I've always tried to run a decent hiring process. Well, actually, I think I've made a few mistakes over the years and tried to really improve it. But one thing that I haven't done as good as this, but like try to get back to people and explain exactly what's going to happen, because there's not everyone's been on the other side of that where you're just waiting, or the worst where people don't even get back to you. It's such a poor look, and I feel like that stuff, you don't know what you don't know in terms of maybe you're not going to hire that person, but they could have told someone else who was a better fit, but they're not going to do it because, you've really kind of annoyed them with the process. So I think it is a part of your brand. This kind of stuff is to, make it easy for people, because there's a lot of time investment in applying for jobs, isn't there? And if you want good people to invest their time, like you gotta respect that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Was there anything more you wanted to run through on the Bee Ninjas side?
No, I think we've done a good overview of that one, and there's probably things we can still improve there.
Yeah.
But we've tried to showcase people that work there and what it's really like to work at the firm. If we've got time, we could talk through. I think the Inspire CA's got an interesting website, or Business
Yeah, no, for
Depot.
sure. I really like these employee testimonials as well. I mean, like that kind of social proof is mega powerful. One that I like is Live CA in the States. Mary, you could work there surfing. But I really like this bit. It's a really strong images, not just like one image, it kind of always brings it to life. And you've got this one always stands out to me, someone who's a professional hockey player and a CPA, it's such a good story, and then they go into the videos and all of that. So there's some elements I really like there. And you mentioned an Inspire. This one load up. This is a really comprehensive one. I was looking at this. What's the thing you like on this one, Meryl?
I like that they've got the perks so very quickly. So I suppose you could argue about whether you should start with the job openings because people are looking for that directly, or whether you should put that more towards the bottom so people are reading through all of that information. I like that they're putting what you'll love. So they're quickly putting the selling points right there. And Inspire's got a lot of, they're active on social media and have a podcast as well, and talk. The founder Ben's pretty active there, so they've got a good founder story. But they're probably, when I was looking at this page earlier, I didn't see so much from the team in terms of photographs or testimonials or videos of the team. So that's probably something I'd add.
Yeah. I think, to me, the difference, that's, I think, a stock photo. Might be wrong, but I'm going to say that's a stock photo. Whereas, the example I just showed, that's very clearly not a stock photo. It's a very high quality photo, but it's definitely not a stock photo. So I think that is really, really powerful to have that, because people can smell that stuff out, and that we talk about authenticity all the time now, but I think that's important. But I think the salary part, I mean, it's beyond the scope of this webinar. It's one of the major gripes of people looking for jobs if you don't put a salary on there. So at least have a bracket, I think, and that's obviously not for one job, isn't it? But I hate that when we see that for one job, it's like 50 to 250k. Which one is it? But I think that isn't. I would personally put that out there. I mean, if we abstract it from careers, it's like websites that don't have the pricing on. I'm looking at modular homes at the moment, right? So I want to know what they cost, obviously. And all the websites want you to fill in a form to get the pricing. I'm like, come on. So I'm going with the ones who just show me the pricing up front. And they might not be the best ones, but that is what people want to see, I think.
I've heard of that with pages like Seek as well. If the price isn't listed or there's some kind of range that's up, then but particularly in a candidate's market, they just skip through it and then focus on the salary that's in the right range for them.
Yeah, totally. And going back to selling that house, actually, like we were advised, don't put to do it like by negotiation or auction, we were doing it or whatever. And then we just like, just put a price on it, and all the offers came in, straight away, all the offers came in, got done within a week. So yeah, people are driven that way. And yeah. All right, cool. Well, I could keep talking about this for a while. I think we need to move on to talk about social. So I think that people are definitely going to check out your website. I think that careers page is important. Obviously, the rest of the website looking good enough is important. You don't need the best website in the world, but it needs to be good enough. But yeah, I do think that team page there's a lot of leverage in that, not just for people looking for a job, but as we talked about, people who are looking to work with you as well. So let's go back and have a bit of a chat about social media stuff. So we've already said it, like I found that when I've had candidates come through at BizInc, they've stalked my socials. I've had a couple of weird ones on that where they've like looked at some of my personal stuff and tried to be, like a bit matey with it. It didn't quite come off, but it happens, right? And that's happened with you as well. So you're very active on social media. I guess like you would advocate for the founders doing that, maybe to sort of change the direction a little bit. What about the rest of the team doing company social media? What are your thoughts on that?
So we encourage our team members to network and be active in places like LinkedIn too. So encourage our team in the Philippines to do that. And then we also train some team members, if they're interested, then they can rotate through having a turn working or drafting content for the B Ninjas social media pages. I think some firms are worried that their staff are going to be poached if they're public about what firm they work at. Our attitude is that they could be poached, but we want to make it such a great place to work that team members want to stay. And it might be natural if you've got more junior team members that they will move around a little bit. So we concentrate more on trying to be a great place to work and doing things like the team retreats in the Philippines, or we've done them in other locations too. And we encourage people to be active and to say that they work at B Ninjas. And we also try and tell the stories of team members. So we've got the B Ninjas podcast. We've had over 100 episodes of that. And we've had multiple team members on to tell their story, to talk about living and working in Japan and Argentina, or being yoga teachers and how mindfulness ties in with doing great work. Yeah, okay. So we're trying to showcase the team members that work at B Ninjas too.
Came to me now. This question was, have you ever hired someone based on a social profile that they've got within the target market that you're going after?
So if I hired an accountant.
So say like, you work with e-commerce businesses, right? Like if there was some accountant doesn't work for you and they've got an unbelievable presence following within e-commerce businesses, would you want to hire them because of that?
Maybe. I'd say most accountants, there's some accountants that are great at social media, but I'd say most accountants that we're looking to hire don't have the dual skill set of also being amazing, having amazing personal brands. But if they were, and we were looking for someone to help generate leads, then that would be amazing. Or it would probably be more if we were looking for a marketing position or some kind of growth or lead generation position, then absolutely I'd be looking at that to see, well, how good were they at building their own personal brand? That's a good indication of how popular and interesting and engaging their writing is.
Yeah, for sure. Do you take into account in your sort of social strategy and wider marketing strategy attracting candidates? Is that like something specifically in there?
Definitely. So some of the content is very e-commerce specific. So it's the audience for that type of writing or that type of content is all about e-commerce and how much should you pay yourself as an e-commerce business owner and metrics for e-commerce brands. And then some of it is for the accounting industry. And that's why one of the reasons I speak at industry events is more about networking and relationships within the accounting industry and building a profile there for me, but also for the B Ninjas brand. And we are active on social media in the Philippines, and that's all for employer branding. So we're not getting clients from the Philippines, but we're trying to showcase that we're a great place for Filipino accountants to work. And so that content is all about, behind the scenes of what it's like to work there, or stories of different team members. So they're almost quite separate strategies because they have different audiences, but they all feed into the overall Beanages brand.
Yeah. We talked about this. We were going to talk about this at the start. We didn't quite get to it. Was that, it's got to be taken as read that, what you're talking about culturally and all of those things matches the real experience. Having said that, you can create a lot of impact through these channels, right? Like, and maybe to flip it a different way would be to say, I've been into the offices of some firms or met with them where they're really cool firms, but if you looked at the website, it looks like something from 1999, and you can almost like, if you had to guess what it was like, you'd like some dusty, dingy office, but that isn't the reality at all. So I think that, not that you should sort of like oversell yourself, but it's so important of having that personal brand. You've got that, I think, for people to be attracted to work at your firm.
I don't think it can feel intimidating thinking, oh, I need to be on every single social media channel. I need to update my website every year. It doesn't need to be like that. It can be, I think of websites, it can be just not bad enough so that it doesn't detract from your brand. It doesn't have to be like the Apple website, but it just needs to be good enough. And with social media, you don't need to be everywhere. You could pick 1 or 2 channels. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Facebook, whatever you're comfortable with. Maybe there's a team member that's doing a post every couple of weeks, just keeping something fresh. So they're spending half an hour on it, getting a nice team shot, writing about something interesting. Doesn't even have to be long. ChatGPT might be able to help. Please edit and add your own personal perspective as well. But it doesn't have to be a huge task, but just doing a little bit can, I think, make a big difference when people are coming to consider working at your firm.
I used to use like a suit analogy. No one wears suits anymore. Well, not no one, but like that's a bigger thing. But I look at it this way, right? Like, maybe it's nice to get some custom tailored, wonderful designer suit that costs, several $1,000s. But like, if you buy a nice suit off the peg, that's fine, you can still look good enough, like you say, with that. But what you don't want is like a suit that, you haven't washed in, several months, and it's all crumpled up and you've spilled egg down it, that's the, so it's not like, you've got to be all singing or dancing incredible, but good enough, which doesn't need to take that much effort. Has anyone got any questions so far on what we're talking about? Really interested to get your feedback on this stuff. We're going to stick around for a Q&A at the end. I guess one other thing I was going to talk about, and I'm particularly thinking of LinkedIn has functionality for this. When you've got a specific job, do you have a kind of like a playbook for promoting that out through social? You obviously goes on your careers page, but do you have a playbook for promoting that to your network?
Not really. We probably could do a better job of that. So we have the always hiring mentality at the moment. So we're not specifically promoting particularly junior or intermediate accounting roles in the Philippines. But if you asked me that a couple of years ago, every time because we're recruiting less, we would share it with the team in Slack to say, hey, we're putting this on the Beanages team page. Can you share it around? And we also have a team member referral incentive. So it's quite significant for the Filipino staff. If they refer someone, they get 500 Australian dollars, which is quite a lot over there. So that has really encouraged some top quality referrals as well. So we probably more lean into that than we do ask people to share it as well on LinkedIn, but we could probably do a better job of that, actually.
I mean, LinkedIn now always asks me, are you hiring? So I think, I haven't been one that's been doing that, but you can do that. So yeah, that's a really good way to get it out. Yeah, cool.
Okay. I suppose we have a slightly different experience because we used to do our own hiring and now we're using TeamUp, which is my other business who they're doing recruitment. So our process is slightly different in that we used to be spending a lot of time trying to attract candidates, whereas now we're getting sent vetted candidates, but they're assessing us because they might be newer to us than if they'd been reading our social content or looking at our website organically. And so this year we've been having a slightly different experience there where the candidates are pre-vetted, but then once they get introduced, they're still doing that background checking. But yeah, we're probably spending less time on getting the word out there that we're hiring.
Yeah, cool. Well, tell us a little bit about Team Up anyway, because yeah, I think a lot of people will know you from being ninjas, and Team Up is a new venture that you're involved with. Some info on screen, but like obviously a lot of people are going to be familiar with like BPOs or offshoring or outsourcing. How's Team Up different to that? And like we've got a little calculator, I guess we can show as well.
Yeah, great. So I'm involved as an investor with Team Up, but I actually just took on a part-time role there within the last couple of weeks. And so my role there is head of accounting. So doing events like this, talking about recruitment and team building. But to answer your question, typically with a BPO or an offshoring provider, they're a full managed service. And so you'll pay a monthly fee to them. Maybe it's 700 or 1,000 Australian dollars a month. And for that, they'll provide an office, computer equipment, and on top of that, you'll pay a salary. And if you ever want to leave that provider, they may charge an exit fee as well. So they're not really your team. It's probably more of the BPO's team. And so at Beanages, we've got 20 staff in the Philippines. We've worked with 2 different BPO providers in the accounting industry. And we realized, well, we're paying tens of thousands of dollars, or potentially we're paying tens of thousands of dollars a month if we want to scale our team. Are we getting value for money here? And we decided no. And so we were looking around for someone that could handle recruitment for us because it's quite time consuming. And so a friend of mine actually started Team Up, and that is, they handle just the recruitment piece. So you pay 4,500 Australian dollars for them to handle a recruitment of accountant or a bookkeeper, and then there's no ongoing monthly fees. You can pair that with an employer of record service or IT support separately as add-ons. So we've been really happy with moving away from that BPO model, particularly from a team culture perspective, because with the BPOs, there was always someone in the middle. We'd want to give someone a pay rise. We'd want to send specific computer equipment to help with their situation. And we always had to run it by somebody, get permission. And we couldn't build culture the way we wanted. There was the BPO culture, and then there was Beanages culture, and we want one culture for our onshore and offshore team, one culture, one business. And so we've been really happy in moving away from the offshoring providers to this direct model. And I think Team Up's a good fit if you've already done a little bit of offshoring. I think we definitely found it helpful in the early years getting started and having our hand held going into the Philippines for the first time. But once you've been doing it for a little while, I don't think you necessarily need all of that extra support and the fees that come with it. So we've put together this calculator where you can compare side by side what would it look like if you were to pay a one-time recruitment fee compared to if you were to pay the ongoing monthly fees of an offshoring provider, a BPO.
Yeah, cool.
And so you can select, so Matt, maybe we select the employer of record service, which is D10.
Oh yeah, sorry. There we go.
And so that would be an onboarding fee for that. And then you can see, well, the total cash outlay to get someone started in cell E16 is $4,050. So there's the recruitment fee, plus sending some computer equipment out, plus paying for onboarding for an employer of record service. I should probably quickly explain. An employer of record service, that's if you want your team member to be employed as an employee through a Filipino entity. It's a third party that's a company in the Philippines, and they have the employment contract with your team member, and they take care of healthcare benefits, taxes, everything from a compliance perspective, and then they have a contract with you as well. So you're
Kind of like
paying them.
Deal is one that's well known in the market, right? Is it similar to that?
Absolutely. So deal and remote is another similar example.
Yeah. I've just shared the calculator, so if anyone wants that, you just have to request access. If you want to talk to the founder of Team Up, Isaac, I'm just going to throw a link in the chat there. So you know, you might have a lot of questions around that, and I'm sure he'd be happy to share how it works. Or if you want him to reach out to you, I'm just going to run a quick poll in 2 seconds.
Feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat.
Yeah, cool. I think I need to close off the other one first. Oh yeah, stop sharing. There we go. Let me launch this one up now. So yeah, just do that. It's anonymous one. I won't share the thing, and if you want someone to reach out, we'll do that. So has anyone got any questions about what we've been talking about? I'm happy to help out with any of that stuff. I'll just let that run for a little while. Now, flick back onto here. So I'm not gonna like this too much, but like if you feel like your website does need a bit of an upgrade, we can do that. We've got a very simple website package now where you can get started for no setup fee and a really low monthly or annual fee. I will drop my link in the chat, and if you want to chat about that, happy to do that. And we can include a careers page in that. So obviously we're strongly advocating for that, and we can help you build out a really awesome team page. So I will close that one off. And yeah, let me know if you you have any questions. You can use the chat or the Q&A. Was there anything else you wanted to sort of run through, Meryl, that we didn't cover off?
We've done a good overview, so I'm happy to take questions if anyone has them about any of the topics we've covered, or anything else related to hiring, careers pages, challenges, hiring accountants, anything like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, like one bit that I'm quite interested in is I think you can do a lot of stuff with automation on the back end of this. You know, I think that some things get automated too much in these processes, so there's got to be a real human element. But I know when we hire, we've got like the form that people apply. It goes like, you know, puts Google Docs, you know, into Drive folders, and so you know everything's really easy because you get a job where it goes popular, you can get quite overwhelmed with that stuff. So I think it's a really good use case for automation. One question I had actually, so like the not making it too onerous for people, but also making them do something quite specific. I think that's quite important. I found that really helps sift through people. You know, you get people who apply and you ask them to write a little, not cover letter, but you know, fill in a few boxes. And I get people who just put a full stop or period in the boxes, and you're like, really? So I think that having a few hurdles to jump over is quite good. What do you think?
I agree, because there's people I think that are the spray and pray approach, where they're applying for 100 jobs and then seeing what comes back, and then they might put in some more effort. Whereas we're hoping for people that actually want to work at Vintages. So having a couple of those little things, I think clearly it vets people out, because you don't want to have to read through 150 applications either. So you need some ways to screen things out to make it a bit easier on your end too.
Yeah, it really does make a big difference. So do you ask everyone to do a Loom video who applies?
I'm not sure if that's still our process, but we used to. Yeah, and I love that, because quickly you can get such a sense of someone when you see their face and how they're talking. So I found that was a really fast way to vet. And that's something else I do. I like looking at career jumps. So how quickly did people progress? So I actually often would go straight to their resume or to LinkedIn to try and see, well, were they progressing quickly? I guess that's more of a recruitment tactics than
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the due diligence the other way, right? This stuff works
Yeah.
both ways, and absolutely, you know, you do that. And I found actually when, yeah, often when I'm hiring, they check out my personal LinkedIn and have a look at all of that stuff, which is good. Like that's what it's there for. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I've not done it with Loom, but we've hired, and the system that people being we use this kind of like recruitment system, and people recorded video. So it's very much like Loom, but it was like the questions were there and they did it. So it was like almost like a pre-screening. And I agree with you. It's like so there were some people who didn't look that good on paper, but when you saw them talk, you're like, I've definitely got to talk to them. And vice versa. Some people who's like, their CV look really good, but when you heard them talk, you're just like, that's a no. You
Yeah.
know? So I thought it was a real quick way to get through some of those things quite well.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so let's wrap it up there. But you've got Meryl's details, and we will send a follow-up email with the recording and some of those notes. Will include those sites that we talked through, links to Team Up, and the calculators as well. So thanks, Mel, for joining us. It's been awesome for you to share all of that information.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's been great.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. Appreciate you making the time to do that. We'll follow up with that recording and the info in the next day or two. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Have a great rest of the day. And yeah, thanks for coming.